Retro.
And welcome everybody to a special episode of the Animanicast.
Bunnies?
Buster and Babs Bunny. No relation.
Let's hope not. It's a children's show.
And welcome everybody to another episode of Talkin' Tiny Toons, San Diego edition. Boom, boom, boom. That's right. This is the podcast that, of course, is dedicated to the animated television series Animaniacs. But today, we're talking Tiny Toons because we like to talk about all the cartoons within the Looniversity, like Tiny Toon Adventures and Pinky and the Brain and Freakazoid. And today, we are specifically talking about the Tiny Toons / Looney Tunes, well, really Looney Tunes / a little bit of Tiny Toons panel at San Diego Comic-Con that Nathan and I were lucky enough to attend. I am Joey, and joining me is the aforementioned brother of mine, Nathan.
That's not all, folks. I mean, it is just me.
Okay, I was like, who else is there? No, it's just Nathan today. Okay, well, that's right. Nathan and I are back from a whirlwind vacation to San Diego Comic-Con. Just got back in a few days ago, and boy, oh boy, was it exhausting, but so much fun. We have a full rundown of all the different things that we saw and all the things that we did, as many of the things that we could legally talk about. It's all over at retrozap.com. So make sure you check out those episodes. They were a lot of fun to put together, just kind of recalling all the stuff that we did. So, but today, we're going to be sharing some audio from the Looney Tunes Tiny Toons panel, so that you folks out there can listen to it. And we're also going to share an interview with Dave Pryor, who was an animator that worked on StarToons, and we're going to be sharing some additional panel audio from a panel that was all about 80s cartoon series and the writers that worked on them. So this is a jam-packed full episode of stuff.
Yeah. We'll do some talking in between these things, I assume.
Yes.
Okay.
We got to get some intros, but I guess the main thing we got to talk about, we will be talking about, of course, after the panel audio for Tiny Toons, of course, the major controversy that sprung up. Now, as soon as the panel ended, I think a lot of people assumed that the biggest controversy would be that the entire voice cast appears to be new for Tiny Toon Adventures,
which we had already, Yeah,
we had already heard this, and you try to tell people these things, and but finally people go, "Oh my gosh, it's true!" So there's a new voice for Babs Bunny, and we can only assume that there's new voices for Buster and Plucky and all those folks as well. Although Eric Bauza does say something in this panel right here of "See you in class," so we can only assume that he's going to be doing the voice for at least Bugs and or Daffy, I should say. Maybe Plucky as well. We'll have to see. But the main issue wasn't about the voice cast. It was what we thought initially was that had to have been a mistake. That couldn't have been.
It's very much like a throwaway line when you're listening to the thing, where I was like, did they just... No.
You'll hear Aaron Gibson in this panel say, and now... here's Ashley, who plays Buster's twin, Babs. And everyone at the moment was, I think, at least I was, thinking, oh, new voice actress. Not, did she just say twin? Nathan, having such good ears, was like, did she say twin?
I have bunny ears, like my twin. Buster.
Everyone's related to Buster these days.
Yeah, we're all twins.
So, sure enough, she did, and it was later confirmed online. Let me pull up the artist who confirmed it. This was confirmed by Len Corrali, who confirmed it on Twitter to one of the Twitter followers on there. So, Yes, they are indeed going to be twins on this show. We'll talk more about the reactions and everything about the Tiny Toons designs and all that stuff in just a bit. But I think we better get right into the panel where we are kind of like just getting ready for it. And then I think there's a little. I think we'll still keep in the little weird part of singing "Happy Birthday" to Tweety Bird. I think is still on there.
Yeah, we cut out a bit of this because there was a lot of fluff in the.
Yeah, if there one big criticism of this panel is that Warner Brothers put in an entire episode of a preschool show featuring Bugs Bunny, which was incredibly loud. I think the decibel level was it was ear piercing almost.
And this is a 45-minute panel, and we're like, oh yeah, let's just put that in. That sounds great. That's what people want to see.
Exactly. Not like a quick 2-minute sample to give us an idea.
If this was a 2-hour panel, then go for it. Like whatever. But time is short. This episode was premiering, I think, that day. Yeah, that day.
They weren't even giving like exactly the biggest exclusive there anyway. It wasn't so. That was a bit of a disappointment. That was just a way to eat up some time. And of course, at the end, again, a great time for questions from the audience. They played an entire long, boring song from this Bugs Bunny musical that's coming out. And I may or may not keep some. Actually, I think I'll keep that in because the song, I guess, is fine. But it does give you kind of an idea about, they're just eating up time right here. So feel free to use that fast forward button towards it. I will not blame you. And we'll catch you at the other end of it when we kind of give our thoughts on the panel and some of the characters that were shown, but were not really mentioned, obviously. Okay, so we'll see you back here after our panel audio from Tiny Toons. Okay, everybody, we're at the we're back Looney Tunes
Joey
panel.
is having a stroke.
I've been having a stroke all this morning. Part of the expression. But I've been so just wiped out. Like I've had a medium Diet Coke and a coffee, and my brain is starting to get into functioning mode. Anyway, we're here at the panel, and we are ready to see what's going on with Looney Tunes and the thing that we're most excited about, which of course is the Tiny Toons.
Tiny Toons!
Yes. Looniversity.
Yeah, they're going to tell us something about it, and Joey's going to ask a question about it if he can, so it should be really good.
Yeah, we'll see. Luckily enough, we just happen to be right next to the microphone, so the chances of me being able to ask a question are relatively high.
Although it's a short panel, so that also makes it relatively low.
Yes, I forgot about that. Yeah, 45 minutes does not leave much time at all for questions.
They're going to be talking about 3 things, so they have, 5 minutes each? Then you got some time?
Maybe.
So.
Yeah, but we're in a good position for pictures, and we're in a good position for audio and stuff. So enjoy the panel. Hopefully we all enjoy the panel. Hopefully it gets some good information. Hopefully it's audio worthy. Sometimes these panels are just like, look at this, look at this, look at this.
Which is great for us, but not great for you guys.
Exactly. In your mind's eye, imagine it. Okay, so let's go ahead and we're going to skip ahead the waiting, and we're going to go right to the panel right now.
Is this a dream? Is this actually happening?
What's up, Comic-Con?
I've waited 3 long years to say that in front of people.
If Daffy here, he would probably say, thanks for making the drive to see me at DaffyCon. Woohoo!
Hello, everyone. My name is Eric Bauza, and welcome to the Looney Tunes panel at San Diego Comic-Con. What you just heard is true. I am the voice behind some of your favorite Looney Tunes classic characters you might know.
And like Bugs Bunny, ain't he a stinky? Daffy Duck, you're all despicable.
And Marvin the Martian, I do love Comic-Con, but it does block my view of Venus, therefore I shall have to blow it up. But I won't. And a few others. It's so great to see you all here today. I'm very excited about all the things, Looney, that we're going to talk about. But first, I wanted to introduce you to a good friend of mine. We've been working together for a few years now, and he wanted to say hi. And you didn't know.
Hello, everyone. It's me, Tweety.
Wow!
Thank you all for coming to my birthday party.
Oh, Tweety, it's nice to see you, but it's actually not your birthday party. This is the Looney Tunes panel.
Of course this is my birthday party. All these people came here to wish me a happy birthday. Right?
Okay, we've got some awesome panelists here waiting to talk, but, since they do love you, well, why don't we all get together and sing Tweety happy birthday? It's Tweety's 80th birthday this year, so let's sing. You guys want to sing Tweety happy birthday? 1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you, Tweety. Happy birthday to you.
I thought I saw a pretty tag.
Bye, Tweety. 3 years we've been waiting to show that. 3 years. Warner Brothers Animation at its finest. Let's take a look, speaking of Tweety, and it's his 80th birthday, let's take a look at some awesomely fun stuff coming up from the cinematic world of Looney Tunes. First, with King Tweety, the new feature film starring everyone's favorite 80-year-old canary, which will air on Cartoon Network on November 19th, one day before it begins streaming on HBO Max.
And roll the trailer, Smokey.
You're invited to a royally loony movie event.
Hooray!
What a great way to celebrate Tweety's 80th birthday. But before we go any further, I would love to introduce you to our fine panelists today. You guys want to meet who's on the panel? First up, we have Alex Kerwan, the supervising producer of Looney Tunes cartoons. Next up, we've got Abe Oddish, the supervising producer of Bugs Bunny Builders. Next, we got Aaron Gibson, the showrunner and co-executive producer of Tiny Toons Looniversity. And last, we got Nate Cash, also the co-executive producer of Tiny Toons Looniversity. Thank you guys for joining us. With so many Looney Tunes cartoons productions on the horizon, there's truly something for everyone. How does it feel to be a part of such a timeless franchise, Looney Tunes, right?
For me, it's huge. Not only did I grow up watching the cartoons, which I think is true with a lot of people, but I literally had these cartoons projected over my crib. I'm a cartoon nerd raised by cartoon nerds, so this is almost our religion in my household.
Yes.
Looney Tunes.
Yeah, it's become so iconic, and just getting to be a part of it. Anyone you talk to knows some iteration of Looney Tunes and really kind of relates to it in some way, whether your humor or your how you grew up. So it's great to be part of that.
I mean, don't we all need just silly stuff in our lives right now? What a relief.
Yeah, I'm a first-generation cartoon nerd, so... but my son, I'm raising him as a cartoon nerd in the audience. He's super excited to be with us.
I think there's a lot of young cartoon nerds in the audience, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Yeah, I mean, Tweety's turned 80, Bugs is 82 now. It's like we know these characters like our grandparents, pretty much, Like, they've been here for us, they made us laugh, they made us cry, and now we get to contribute to, bringing them to a whole new generation, and I think it's kind of amazing. And to see all of you here, again, just warms my heart. Thank you guys. Now, let's hear a little bit more about, specifically, what's going on with Looney Tunes cartoons.
Not just because I voice a bunch of characters on the show. But also because the show is gearing up for another season. Sorry, I'm spitting.
That's what happens if you stand to the left of me when I do that voice. Sorry. A new season's coming out on HBO Max. How does the team of Looney Tunes cartoons approach making every episode, or every short, I should say, working with these timeless characters? And what has been your favorite moment so far in the series?
Oh gosh. What's cool about Looney Tunes is there's a lot of different ways to interpret them and a lot of different things you can do with the characters. Our approach on Looney Tunes cartoons is to use the original shorts, the original 1,000 and something Looney Tunes ever done in the classic era as close of a model as possible. So we write them in storyboards. Our writer's room is a lot of people drawing drawings and pitching ideas to each other. We try to really honor all the hard work and the evolution that happened in the shorts. So we only do classic pairings of the characters. We only use characters together that they use together, and trying to come up with premises and things that they would have done even if they use like modern technology and things like that. It's still try to create a comedy dynamic that really honors the mechanics of what was done in the classic shorts.
Like literally back to the drawing board.
Very much, yes.
So you will never find these characters in Looney Tunes cartoons playing a basketball game with the best. I mean, but I joke. But the funny thing is,
have a basketball short. Yeah.
There is. I joke, but the funny thing is, even if you do see them in a commercial for chicken nuggets or shoes or a classic short or a reboot or a preschool show, right? Warner Brothers will always keep the integrity of who these characters are. Like, the world around them changes, but they never change. Right. And that's what you can always count on with the treatment of Bugs Bunny and Friends. So, what is next for the series? Like, is there anything special that we might be seeing throughout this new season drop?
Well, there's so many more shorts coming. I mean, we made hundreds of them. So
1,000 minutes, right?
Yes. So there's many more shorts. We do have new characters that we have coming that haven't classic characters. But so Witch Hazel.
Yes.
Gonna have a solo short.
You guys remember Witch Hazel?
For her first time in a solo cartoon without Bugs Bunny. We also have the Three Bears.
Very nice.
Wonderful Three Bears characters. Very excited about this. Chuck Jones, Pussyfoot, and Mark Anthony are coming back in a really wonderful short. And then Chuck Jones again. We've got Ralph Phillips is short also.
That looks like my son, like in the morning before school. Wake up! It's time to go to school.
We've got a Halloween special that's going to come out in fall, presumably.
Nice.
Probably the next thing that from us that
Looney Tunes is now pumpkin spice flavored. Pumpkin spice Looney Tunes.
And that's going to have a few different shorts, but that's going to include the Witch Hazel short.
Now, I don't want to. You're giving us all these goodies and Easter eggs and tidbits here. I don't want to act as spoiled, but do you think there's any other fun Looney Tunes cartoon teases you want to drop with this audience, perhaps?
I don't know. We've got a fantastic Tweety and Sylvester short, which is all in pantomime, so you weren't a part of. I apologize, but it's set to classical music. That's really, really great. But yeah, I'm really excited about the Halloween special. This Witch Hazel short was one of the first things I wanted to do when I became part of the project of doing this Witch Hazel thing in sort of a different style. Mm-hmm. And it turned out really cool.
Man, I wish we could see it, don't you? Do we actually? Oh, we were going to see it. We're starting out.
Oh, these modern witches, so young and yet already so ugly. I can't stand the sight of it. Look at me. My skin is tightening, my bags are receding, even some of my pores have cleared up. I was once the most hideous, repulsive, despicably dreadful old hag in existence, but now I'm trying
definitely like one of those styles, like Chuck Jones definitely had like a specific style and like how to capture that in like the modern tech that we have with animation. But you guys totally did exactly what I knew you guys were going to do and nailed it.
That's how you live.
Yeah. We also might have another sneak peek at one of those characters we just drew.
Yes. So, as I mentioned, Ralph Phillips, who's a little daydreamer boy. We tried to do something that Chuck Toons didn't do with the character, and something that we thought we'd take a look at because it might play well to this crowd.
Okay. Do you guys want to see it?
I told you ninjas to stay out of Gotham. Well, this is the last time.
Well, how not bad for a Comic-Con exclusive.
Thank you, Warner Brothers, for letting us do that.
The world of Chuck Jones in DC.
Yes.
Very cool mashup. Very cool mashup. Well, since we are talking about more of like the kid angle, I would love to move on from Looney Tunes cartoons to Bugs Bunny Builders. What's up, Abe?
Not much.
I haven't seen you, like, this is another one of those productions that I've worked on during this whole pandemic thing where I haven't seen anyone. We record from home, and I'm seeing these people not in little rectangles. It's kind of nice. You guys have legs. Abe, how are you, and what's it been like working on Bugs Bunny Builders, coming to us July 25th, this Monday?
It's Monday, yeah.
It's going to premiere on Cartoonito on Cartoon Network before it streams the next day. Cartoonito on HBO Max. So give us an intro to the show.
It's been fantastic, first of all. Love working on this. It's the first Looney Tunes production that's made for preschools in over 20 years. So it's super exciting because, again, like everybody here, we grew up, we were fans of it, and now to kind of have this gateway to bring in a younger audience and familiarize, more fans, hopefully, is fantastic. The show itself is a preschool show with a framework, this educational framework that takes nothing away from the classic. That's the one thing we wanted to make sure is that it is Looney Tunes. It feels Looney Tunes. We're just packaging it up in a preschool, setting. But all your favorites are there, all the wackiness and the humor, it's all there.
Again, it's like one of those things for me as, again, a diehard Looney Tunes fan. I would have these shirts in my wardrobe, posters on the wall, even if I weren't the voices of these characters. And anytime I read a script coming from you guys, I'm like, well, they gotta be stumped this time. What are they gonna do this time? And you guys come out the gate with something original and something amazing, and still in the tune of Looney. So congratulations on that. What kind of adventures do the Bugs Bunny Builders go on in this show?
Well, as much as they are builders, it's more about just how they get things done. So the adventures, every episode's an adventure of trying to figure out what they're going to build, how they're going to build it, why are they building it, and for who.
And for who?
Yeah, for
who are they building it for?
So we have, it's the adventures lend to the looniness. I think that's the big important part. It's wherever it takes them, it's as wacky and as loony as any other iteration of Looney Tunes.
Now, I'm a dad, but I'm also a child myself of a 6-year-old, and I'm a 6-year-old dad inside. But what kind of specialties do these characters have? And I'm talking about, like, the vehicles and stuff, and, like, I don't know. I'm looking forward to the toys on the show.
Well, of course, Bugs has the excavator, natural born digger, right? He's a bunny, but he's also same cool, collect, level-headed Bugs, gets things done. Him and Lola are both the co-managers, and Lola is fantastic in this. She has her bulldozer. She's kind of the architect and the creative. She always has her trusty tablet, and she's always coming up with these crazy and wacky ideas. And she's like a dreamer and a doer, so it's really, really great to have Lola on this team. And then we have Daffy, and he drives his dump truck, and, you know, if Daffy needs a haul, or, I'm sorry, if you need a haul, you give Daffy a haul.
Give Daffy a haul.
So he's great. He gets a little distracted at times, but, you know, you'll see more of that. And then Porky drives a steamroller. He is Porky perfect. He likes everything to be meticulous. He always has everyone's back. He's kind. He's very supportive. And then we have Tweety. And Tweety for us is kind of our gateway for kids, so he asks a lot of questions and really gets in there. But he has a crane, and I don't think there's anything we haven't done that Tweety cannot get done with that crane. He's from the littlest piece of popcorn to, you know, big boulders. He can do anything you can think of with that crane.
Maybe the hardest voice I've ever had to do. Make Tweety sound younger.
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
When I do that voice,
Like dogs come from around the neighborhood. Well, as a special treat for the audience, we have a never-before-seen brand new episode of Bugs Bunny Builders that is launching on YouTube later today. But for you guys, we're going to check it out now, if you guys are down. Tiny Toons. I'm a 90s kid. I grew up on Tiny Toons. Any Tiny Toons fans here? I noticed there's another microphone there. I couldn't help but notice that there's my ADD kicked in, and I was like, why is there another microphone in there, over there? Is there someone that...
Oh, maybe there's someone special.
Oh, someone special, that we want to bring up here?
Yeah.
You guys want to introduce?
Well, who cares about us? Let's bring out one of our really exciting voice talent who's playing Babs, the twin of Buster. Ashley Harrison, yes!
Ashley Crystal Harrison! Welcome to the Looniverse, Ashley.
Hi, hello, thank you. Hi,
Voice so strong you probably don't even need the microphone, and that's probably why you got hired for the job. Congratulations. What's it like to voice Babs on the new show?
Oh my gosh, I can't even believe you're saying those things. It feels amazing. So I moved to Los Angeles to do acting 10 years ago, and I just kind of fell into doing voiceovers. And so I still feel very new to it all, and this is my first lead role in an animated series. And so, an iconic character on a legendary show is pretty wacky and pretty loony, I should say. But yeah, it's amazing. It's an honor. Shout out to Tress, the original voice of Babs Bunny.
And for that matter, shout out to Mel Blanc, the voice of everyone's child. But good job, we'll see you in class.
Amazing. What can you tell us about Tiny Toons? How does the series differ from the original? And what has been your favorite part about working on the show so far?
Yeah, so Nate and I are partners on this reboot, and I came over from live action, so we decided that it would be fun to do a half hour. So we are doing a longer format. That's going to allow us, it has allowed us to dive deeper into all of our favorite characters' backstories and find out what the dynamics are and really explore how relationships are made in college and kind of finding yourself and discovering yourself. Babs and Buster are what?
Well, I was just going to say the college aspect. From Erin's original pitch, that's something that she was diving into, is that they go to Looniversity and pitched it as like they're going to performing arts school, which I think was a really cool, like, what do college kids do when they're not in class? It's an awesome setup for cartoons.
Yeah. So there's a little bit of format change. I know we have very limited time left, but is there any art? I know animation is always hard to show at events like this, but
any art that we could see, possibly? I saw like one teaser image online. Do you guys want to see any new art for the show? Oh my god.
An incredible job. I mean, this show is just like, not only is it fun to watch, but it's beautiful too.
I mean, I don't want to brag. Apparently, Steven Spielberg said this is the best rendering of Tiny Toons he's ever seen.
I'm sorry, who? Steven Spielberg? Wow. Okay.
This is our main cast in the blue room. It's our coffee hangout. There's the faculty, so just like the original show, the classic Looney Tunes characters are their teachers at the college. Here's an aerial shot of the campus.
The thing everyone came to see.
The Performing Arts Center, cool buildings with like bombs and rockets built into it. Very cool.
What you at Looniversity.
Yeah, there's just the Louvre background. A rival campus.
That's Aqua Lou. You'll never guess what the name of that school is. It's water.
Amazing. Oh my gosh. The most important part of every Looney Tunes. You gotta have good health care for your Looney Tunes.
Yes, it is. So
ask Wile E. Coyote.
I mean, it's just...
You have to.
It's just, I mean, print it out and put it in your dining room, you guys, because it's just beautiful. But you get the idea. It's like we have, of course, our icons, the statues. This is Bud Hall. This is the boys' dorm. It's old because it's classic, right? And I bet we have and this is everybody. So it's not the whole. These are top main 5 characters as the original, but they all get equal screen time. They're all very much integral to this, to the stories of this reboot.
It's like you guys built a time machine that went back to the 90s, and here we are again. Thank you guys.
Thank you. And I want to say, like, we're keeping. There are going to be tons of silly gags. There's going to be tons of big comedy, but we've got a lot of references to the 90s if you're my age. If you need a Boys to Men joke, we got it for you.
Sweet.
Well, since it's been a while, and I haven't done this in 3 years, there's one tidbit that we left out from Alex's presentation that I'd like to circle back to, just within the Looney Tunes cartoons universe. I remember earlier this year there was an announcement about a Looney Tunes movie starring Porky and Daffy. Can you tell us about the film?
Yes.
In the few minutes we have left? These folks?
So yeah, we're doing a Looney Tunes cartoons movie. As you mentioned, it has Porky and Daffy, which are 2 of our favorite characters to work with. And on the shorts, we realized there are 2 of the only non-adversarial Looney Tunes characters. The only two characters who aren't trying to devour each other. This movie is called, we haven't announced the name yet, but it's The Day the Earth Blew Up.
Yeah, that seems appropriate.
There it is, guys. The Day the Earth Blew Up. Coming soon. Some kind of screen near you. Guys, we're almost out of time here. This has been so much fun. Thank you all for being such great audience members and fans of Looney Tunes. Before we go, we have one more thing we'd like to share. Warner Brothers Animation has been working on another original animated Looney Tunes movie called Bye Bye Bunny, a Looney Tunes musical. As you guys know, music has always been a big part of Looney Tunes. That will be coming to Cartoon Network and HBO Max soon. The movie will be built upon legendary musical legacy of Looney Tunes and features original music from Tony, Grammy, and Pulitzer Prize award-winning songwriter Tom Kitt, with lyrics by Ariel Dumas, who is the head writer for The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. So we're going to close today's panel by sharing a special video featuring Mr. Tom Kitt singing one of the main songs from the movie. In the movie, Bugs Bunny
decides it's time to retire from a life of being the world's most famous rabbit.
And this song sums up his wish, and it's going to provide you with a little visual history lesson of Bugs. So
Goodbye, everyone. Make sure to watch the Looney Tunes cartoons on HBO Max, Bugs Bunny Builders on Cartoon 2 on HBO Max, and be sure to look out for Tiny Toons as well as the other Looney Tunes cartoons coming soon to you. Roll the clip.
Must be nice, good for you, that your only worldview worry is which tulip you should chew. We're the same check the tail, the only difference is that I bust mine for ticket sales. Imagine if I joined you here, oh, for just one sunny bunny day, I toss my whole career. Why do I gotta be Bugs Bunny and never just a bunny no one bugs? Tired of running around being funny, singing songs and cutting rugs. There's always a crowd that needs wowing. There's people I gotta be pleasing. I pray to take a staycation, but it's always rabbit season. Oh, why do I gotta be Bugs Bunny and never just a bunny no one bugs? Sick of doing my shtick for no goodness, waking up and thwarting thugs. So why not just grin and bear it, nibble on a carrot or two? It's hard always asking what's up, Doc, when no one wonders what's up you. But if I was a regular rabbit, with my toes in the grass and my head in the clouds, fancy a snack, I'll just grab it. No more clowning nor bowing for loud crowds allowed. All my friends, fellow bunnies, my frenemies, hawks, my stage, the whole meadow, my critics, all rocks. At night, I'll snuggle in my burrow. A tree's my marquee. But bugs, the show must go on. Well, why can't it go on without me? Without me? Oh, why do I gotta be Bugs Bunny and never just a bunny no one bugs? After 81 years, this rabbit's done. He's more than ready to unplug. If only it were so easy. If only I could be free. When can I stop being the bunny that bugs me and be the bunny that I wanna be?
That's all, folks.
All right, we're back in the present, sort of.
Where our present is your past.
Yes, exactly. Ooh, what is time? Okay, let's go ahead and go over the characters that we saw. Of course, a lot of the major characters that we saw, the ones that they were talking about in the panel that were featured heavily. I believe they were Sweetie. We had Babs and Buster, Hampton, Plucky. Those were like the 5, I believe they said that were going to be focusing.
They each have equal screen time.
Right.
Those 5, so.
On the main artwork that you can see really all over the place, you can also see Dizzy and Furball and Calamity and Fifi and Shirley the Loon and Go-Go and Little Beeper. And you can even see Montana Max and Elmira in there. And, I forgot Sneezer. He's in there too. So a lot of the classic characters with, a little bit of a modern look to them. There was even another shot that they showed, if you guys can remember in the original series, when they said those lines, "We're all a little loony," and all those characters kind of popped in a circle around the screen. Mm-hmm. Well, they kind of had a similar shot during the panel, and it showed a lot of the characters that I had just mentioned. However, they showed even more classic characters, and even one or two characters that I think are brand new.
Yeah, or they were so small that we forget about.
Yeah, exactly. So Marsha the Martian was shown. There was also let's see, Foulmouth was there. Mm-hmm. They also have a sheepdog, which I can only assume could be Saul the sheepdog. That's the only one I got from when I typed in sheepdog in Tiny Toons. Beaky, I'm sorry, not Beaky Buzzard, but Concord Condor is shown in the shot, and then we have I believe he's just called Bookworm is there.
Mm-hmm.
Barky,
I believe so.
Yeah, Barky Malarkey was there, and then they had this raccoon with really kind of with a pierced ear and cool shades, and they look real cool. What can I say about that raccoon? I do not know where that raccoon is from. I'm assuming it's a brand new character. If you folks out there know of any raccoon in Tiny Toons, let me know, but I think that one's new. So 90% old characters and a little bit of new. Honestly, the look of the characters, I think people were very positive about. It looked really good. I was actually surprised at how much the characters looked true to their original form, and they even got a lot of positive praise from creator of the Tiny Toon Adventures, Tom Ruger, who said great artwork. And I saw compliments on other feeds on Facebook and stuff where he was just complimenting how the figures looked very similar to the classic designs that they worked on in the 90s, which, hey, that's a great... It's always great when the creator of the show likes what you're doing, especially when he's not involved at all with the show. With this show, I should say.
Yeah, and we heard that Steven Spielberg is a fan of the animation, and during
that he said you could hear in the panel that he likes the look of this iteration the most. Mm-hmm. Which I think above all, it's probably because it's very consistent. They're probably not going to multiple animation studios, because as great as some of those Tiny Toons episodes are, I mean, we're coming up, our next one that we're going to be reviewing is one that was done by Freelance Animation. And even though the episode is very good, the animation studios that they go to are not always the best. So this looks like the consistency is going to be, high shelf animation, which is fantastic. But then we got to the whole thing about Buster and Babs being twins. And this was confirmed, like I said before, online. And it has made a lot of people, I think, either A, confused, B, angry, C, angry and confused, or D, ambivalent, and they're just like, I'm still going to give the show a chance. I think mostly people are, if I were to gauge it from our social media, I think most people are very upset, because they're thinking not just that it's kind of just odd that they're doing that, but I think there's a good argument that they say, the thing that these shows do is that they introduce these characters to a younger audience, and now kids will watch the show and then say, oh, there's more Tiny Toons on like Hulu? Okay, I'll watch that. Wait, why are these twins like kissing each other?
Going on a date. Yeah, exactly. Going to the dance together, kissing on the cheek, and yeah.
Yeah, it's a very odd choice, and it shows you that okay, I guess they're not doing a continuation, that this is a brand new universe, and that Tiny Toons Looniversity
Looniverse.
Yeah, very good.
Uh-huh.
But the Looniversity is truly, it's not like it's they were in middle school together and now they're going to college. It's like, no, they're I'm guessing they're just going to be meeting each other in college, I guess.
Yeah, or they found out in the meantime that they're brother and sister, like Luke and Leia found out they were brother and sister, even though they had kissed.
Yeah, I think
more
this
than
would
once.
this would be even worse though.
Yeah, there's just more instances of
the amount of it, and anytime it happened in Star Wars, it was either relatively innocent, like a kiss for good luck before you go across a chasm, or a way to make Han jealous, like in the in the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
In the hospital,
that's what they're called on Hoth. They're hospitals.
Yeah, so this feels weird, and honestly, it makes me wonder. I hate to say this, but did the showrunners did they watch the original show? Because why the decision? I just want to know what the reasoning was behind this.
I can't imagine there being a great reason, because even like if they wanted to go, oh, we don't want them to be like in a relationship thing, like we don't want it to be a platonic relationship. You can have a platonic relationship and not be related to someone. It happens a lot in real life. People have platonic relationships that they're not related to.
Yeah. Well, I know. And 80 or 90% of Tiny Toons, Buster and Babs, are very platonic, and they're just introducing shows, and they're not really they're not like, hey, Toonsters, we're on another date. It's just like we're going someplace together, and here's another cartoon. Well, as you can probably imagine, there was a lot of feedback for this whole twin issue. And, well, instead of going to every single one, we decided to just go ahead and go to our patrons over at patreon.com/Animanicast because, well, they're keeping the lights on over here, so why not give them a chance to talk? So Eric said, I was really confused about Buster and Babs now being related when they're supposed to not be related, just like in the original series. I honestly think that them being twins and instead of a couple really throws things in a loop. I really hope that the new team could fix the dynamic of Buster and Babs Bunny, but I'm still a fan. I'm still a big fan of Tiny Toons, and I would watch the reboot no matter what. Tamara said, I got to say, I do like their new designs, but Buster and Babs being twins throws me off. It is really disappointing. First, they ruined Bugs and Lola's relationship in that horrible Space Jam movie. And now Buster and Babs. I just don't know what to say anymore. What's wrong with rabbits falling in love with each other? Well, I think we all know what's wrong with it. More rabbits. That's what's wrong. No. And Brian says, I always assumed they liked each other. I also remember Buster expressing being the son of Bugs Bunny and having big shoes to fill around campus. I do not remember that, Brian. At least, but there have been some people, although online, saying I thought he was Bugs' son or something. And no, that's not the case. He's just Bugs is a mentor to Buster. Christian says, as for me, a person who never really got heavily into Tiny Toons, I think making the duo twins was a mistake from a PR perspective alone. I like the idea of symbiotic, supportive twins making friends and finding themselves in college. It just should have been another duo. The sheer PR fiasco has altogether overshadowed what I feel to be an otherwise very promising reboot. I get why the crew made the decision. They thought that because it was a full-on reboot, something not that well communicated as of now, they could have made this Babs and Buster Bunny, no relation, pun intended, to the OG incarnations. Twins and not get to the OG incarnations twins and not get a lot of negative feedback. There we go. However, besides not communicating well, that Looniversity was a continuity reset, they severely underestimated how integral no relation and the romance were to Babs and Buster, leading to the backlash we see today. Well, there we go. So thank you very much, patrons, for all that feedback. And now back to our previously recorded segment with me and Nathan. Just a very odd choice. And I hate to say it, but it really, even if it's not true, it does give the impression that those in charge of the show never were familiar with the original show at all. To come up with such a glaring mistake.
It seems like it's just some executive or someone at the top of the line somewhere is just like, oh yeah, and they're twins, like whatever, yeah, we'll have them do that, and then it just kind of is like, well, he's my boss, so I'll do what he's at,
Which, again, I know people get very upset whenever voice actors are announced in shows and it's not the exact voice actor you want. But folks, if folks had gotten a little bit more perturbed when creators and writers of the show were announced, and they're not from the original run at all, things like this are bound to happen eventually.
Yeah, because those are the people that will fight for, even if their boss says a thing, they'll be like, no, this is not how it goes. This is how this is supposed to.
I guarantee you, Tom would not have said, okay, now they're going to be twins. Tom would put up the fight and actually, because we've heard the stories of Tom going up against the executives and him having trouble with certain members of them because he has to fight. He fought for what he knew was right for the show. And this does seem like I mismanagement somewhere, bad decision somewhere. Hope, and you know what? I'm not optimistic that it could change, but I think it's still possible.
That's true. I mean, we don't even have a release date for the show.
There's no release date. They had art.
Yeah, it could be 2 years. It could be a year. It could be 5 years. It's not coming out this year.
No, it's not coming out in 2022.
Not a 2022 release.
And maybe not even next year because
it would be late 2023 if it comes out next year. So
yeah, for them to have basically said, like, for the Spider-Man thing, I think, did they even say 2024 or something?
Yeah,
like
that was 2024 for Spider-Man.
Yeah, for the animated Spider-Man, they at least gave us a date, late 20, or just they said 2024.
Yeah.
And for them just to say it's coming for Tiny Toons makes you wonder, like, okay, they've been working on this show for over a year or so, and they have at least a year or so more to work on it still. So there's still an opportunity perhaps for things to change. We'll have to see.
Yeah, if you're related to an executive at at Warner Brothers. Yeah, if your twin is one of the executives at Warner Brothers, be like, hey, remember can you change the like you're working on Tiny Toons?
Look, from one twin to the other.
Yeah,
just from one twin to the other. We don't have to be twins all the time. I mean, not everybody has to be a twin, right? You might be able to get through to them. At any rate, please, you can always feel free to let us know your opinions, ladies and gentlemen, by sending them over to animanicast@gmail.com, or of course over at Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We'll have lots of the debate continues to rage on over there, and we don't have really time to read all those, other than to say, join the conversation. Just be courteous of one another. But hey, it's some interesting reactions, I'll say. Hopefully the folks at Warner Brothers take a look at some of those reactions as well. I don't know how many, some people are starting petitions and things like that, and I've never been of the mind that online petitions usually do much. I think
they don't do anything. So
I think
why not?
I think if you want to use your time doing that, that's great. But I think honestly, if it's just the general, if your voices are being heard through social media, that does get heard.
Yeah. How did we get Sonic to be change his teeth?
There was no petitions. It was a lot of just angry people. So
we get it viral on Twitter.
Yeah,
and maybe.
But Buster and Babs, no relation, was the biggest running gag I could think of on that show. It was literally
that was
something
their
they said,
that was their hello nurse saying,
"What's up, doc?" or whatever. Yeah, and it was just I have no idea how they could not have picked up on that and run with it.
But they didn't mean like literally no relation, did they? I mean, like
yeah, it's
when they were saying no relation, they were like no relationship because we're twins.
Right, that's what they'll say this time. No relationship. Buster, I'm Buster,
we're twins,
buddy.
so we're not dating.
Babs, buddy. No relationship. We're twins. And then they move on to the rest of the cartoon. Anyway,
and then the fact that they're in college now is a bit weird, I guess. Well, and they look exactly the same mostly.
It is true. They're size wise, and a lot of people people have not really picked up on that. It's like, wait a minute, these are Toons in college now, and yet they're still. Little kid size. They're half the size of. I don't know about you, but
are they still 14 and now in college?
I don't know about you folks out there, but when I was in college, I was not half my size I am currently. You would think that, like, I'm glad that they didn't make them as tall as bugs. I think that would have been even weirder.
Yeah, I like the animation looks mostly the same for everyone. So
yeah,
I guess that's a positive.
They still do need to be tiny in order to be Tiny Toons, I guess. So as soon as they graduate college, they become big. Anyway, let's get a palate cleanser, shall we? Let's go ahead and get to our interview with Dave Pryor, who we met on the Artist Alley floor of San Diego Comic-Con. He talked to us just a little bit about working with StarToons. Let's go in and get to our interview with Dave. Okay, well, this is Joey here from the Animanicast. Of course, we got Nathan.
Oh, hi, Joey.
Hi, Nathan. How you doing?
Oh, I'm really good.
Okay. I don't really care about that because we have someone much more important than either one of us right here.
Oh.
We got a StarToons alumni here at San Diego Comic-Con. It's Mr. Dave Pryor. Hi, Dave.
Hello, guys.
Hey.
Nice to meet you in the flesh.
Yes. Well, thank you. I'm always shocked when somebody says, "Oh, I've listened to you." I was like, "What? That's impossible." So I'm glad to finally meet one of our 10 listeners. This is fantastic. Well,
you're like, I mean, if it wasn't for Animaniacs fans, we wouldn't have a reboot and all the other stuff that's gone along with Animaniacs.
Exactly. So. You work with StarToons, you were saying, from 1992 up until it closed.
That's right.
So tell us, like, I guess first you got your start in there. How did you get the job to begin with, I suppose, there?
I was going to Columbia College in the city of Chicago. Uh-huh. John McClanahan was teaching over there. He actually went to the school in order to train animators that he would then hire out of school. Or, slim pickings in Chicago. So where better than to just train the people to do the skills that you're going to need to hire for. So I was a teaching assistant over there, and then I went over to his class. I wasn't enrolled in his class, but I just sat in on it. And he would teach things like how to clean up, do like clean up work for the animators' work.
Uh-huh.
So I did a little bit of that. And then I got a summer, not an internship, it was a full-time job over the summer, a year before I was graduating, and worked with all the animators that were part of the team then. They were finishing up on Tiny Toons at the time.
Right.
Maybe a little bit of Tasmania still at that point. And then picking up that big contract with the first season of Animaniacs.
Fantastic. So do you have a favorite scene or a favorite character or something that you worked on that you're like, oh, this was fond memories of doing?
The Randy Beemans were always fun. They were really long scenes, and we were paid by footage, by the amount of work that we did.
Okay.
So you would, that was almost a break compared to doing the Animaniacs and other scenes that had lots of characters in them. They had to okay, I got all these characters running in a circle. Versus Randy Beeman, which was pretty much just standing there and telling his story and all that stuff. So that was a great scene to get awarded to you and work on for like a good week.
Right, and you got to do all those like little side, like you got to add so much to the character as well. There's so many little mannerisms that go on with the Colin, or adjusting his
blowing
pants.
the bubble. You do a lot of like wiping, exactly, wiping his hands, his sticky hands.
Well, and of course, StarToons did, just in my opinion, the best Skippy and Slappy work of any of the studios was 100%, StarToons right there.
Slippy and those were wonderful characters to do too. Some of John's favorites. He always loved those guys, and I love the way he handled the design of them too. And I think the way he drew was always the way I looked up to. Like, I would love to be able to do work as quickly and as wonderful as John could do it.
Yes.
So he was one of the mentors, and I would practice drawing, getting a lot of his scenes.
Right.
And the way I would draw Slappy nowadays would be very much like the way John would have done it, versus maybe straight off the model sheet.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I don't know. Hopefully, we might see some more Slappy in the future on the reboot. We're not 100% sure, but we'd love to see it because she's such an awesome character. Well, currently, I mean, what are you up to currently these days, Dave?
These days, I'm an art director for a gaming company. So I work with a ton of artists all over the world as we're making games. And one of the more interesting side projects I've been doing lately has been design work for the new Fred Rogers series, Don Quixote, which maybe you've seen. It's for younger folks, expanding on the Fred Rogers universe. And I did the puppet designs and certain other designs that are in the show. So I work on that on the side.
And I know we follow you on Instagram. What's your Instagram title?
You can follow me at DavePryor72. I can see the latest work that I've illustrated. I like to do work all the time just for fun and post it. And so sometimes I get time to do small animations just in free time. But otherwise, I'm just busy doing whatever projects are on my plate freelance-wise and during my full-time job.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dave, for taking the time to talk to us. I mean, it's been awesome. I know you just mentioned us in the Instagram things. Hey, come talk to me. And I was like, absolutely. Hey.
Someone wants to talk to us?
Oh, my gosh. It's an honor. Well, no, certainly. It really was an honor talking to you for the brief moment. But good luck here at the con. This is the first big day of the con, the big Thursday.
Yep.
Hope you have a really successful convention.
I started coming here in 2008 was when I had my first table and been doing it ever since then. So.
Fantastic. So if you didn't catch him this year, you should be back next year, I'm assuming, and then get your...
or catch me in Chicago, C2E2.
Oh,
I do that show.
There you go, for all the Midwesterners out there.
Exactly.
All right. Well, thanks again, Dave, for taking some time to talk to us. We'll let you get back to your booth and get those last-minute sales before they kick us all out of here.
Sounds great.
All right. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
All right. So talking with Dave was great. We got to, take a quick selfie with him.
Yeah, he was super nice.
Send us that selfie, Dave. I never got that selfie. Email that to us. At any rate, it was great meeting him, and I really think that one of these days we got to do a StarToons, special.
Yeah,
we get to as many
a reunion
people
for all the StarToonsers.
Yeah, we get as many StarToons people as we can all together on one episode and have a good time talking with all of them about working on Animaniacs and stuff. So we'll see. Hopefully that can happen in the future. Well, let's go ahead before we wrap things up for today. We're going to get to a panel to close things off with. A look back at animated series from the 80s. And this is the description they had on Comic-Con. It says, writers from your favorite 1980s cartoon series recount their fondest memories and painful war stories about the shows that made your childhood. Craig Miller from the Smurfs, The Real Ghostbusters, and Brooks Watchell, and Eric Lewald, and
I can't remember. Not all of them made it.
Not all of them were there. Yes, that's true.
There was a COVID outbreak, so
it might have been Eric Lewald because this one says Galaxy High Chippendale Rescue Rangers, which I don't know if that one was there. Karen Wilson, I believe, was there.
I think so.
But yes. At any rate, they'll introduce themselves. It was a very nice panel. It was. I think the highlight will come when they're talking about, once again, executives talking about not knowing about what it is
that makes a cartoon good. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So how apropos that we're talking about that with the Tiny Toon stuff. But if you don't want to listen to it, that's perfectly fine. But I think we might as well sign off right now so that we can get to that. So, Nathan, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Twitter, JangoFT. That's me.
All right. As for the Animanicast, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that jazz. And, of course, retrozap.com is where you can find our previous reports on San Diego Comic-Con. We had a blast, and we hope you enjoy listening to those things. And enjoy retrozap.com for a bunch of articles and podcasts every day. We're a proud member of the RetroZap Podcast Network, and I want you to check them out. If you want to talk about Tiny Toons or whatever, you can head on over to our Discord. You can get a welcome link by going to discord.animanicast.com. And if you're a super big fan of our show and you want to get some cool bonuses, head on over to our Patreon. Become our supporter on our Patreon by going to patreon.com/Animanicast. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get to the panel right now. But for Nathan and Kelly, who's not here, but she'll be back next time, this is Joey saying good night, everybody.
Oh, I'm going to listen to this thing, so.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 10 a.m. morning panel on 80s television animation. I would like to apologize for a couple of our speakers that are missing. Craig Miller, who is going to be the moderator, is down with COVID-19, as is Brooks Wachtel. Karen Wilson will be coming shortly, but she is trying to make her way from the parking lot and getting her orange band so she can get here. So she sent me ahead. My name is Chris Weber. I'll tell you more about me in a moment, but first we'll have our other panelists introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Eric Leewald, and old friend of Craig's. I was picked for the panel because I started my long animation career in December '84, pitching to Hanna-Barbera, who was the huge company at the time, for Challenge of the GoBots. And I've never written animation before. A buddy of mine and I from the University of Tennessee were out here trying to break into writing, and we were writing specs and working on low-budget movies. And finally, we got one pitch. A dear friend said, they're hiring at HB because they just added on a couple of new 65-episode syndicated shows, which is a new thing then. It used to be 13 episodes for just about everything on Saturday morning. And the toy company realized, hey, we can run them 5 days a week. So suddenly HB had double the amount of work to do, and that's how I got my foot in the door on the GoBots. We got one show in, they liked it, and they said, okay, you guys want to do another one? We said, well, we're really not a writing team. We kind of cheated on that. We just both wanted to get in the business. Can we each get a script? And Kelly Ward and Jeff Siegel, to their credit, looked at us and frowned and said, well, but one of you could really suck. We don't know which one. And so thinking on our feet, because we both wanted to work, we said, well, look, I said, if he's the one that sucks, I'll rewrite this for free, and he'll do the same for me. And okay. So we got our second and third assignments, and it just kind of took off from there. We both got on staff, and then Steph and Disney and other places. But that was the foot in the door. Was 6 episodes of Challenge of the GoBots with Leader One, and writing for transforming vehicles at a time before we knew Transformers, our competitor, was anything special.
I'm John Semper. I'm probably best known for having been the head writer and producer of Spider-Man the Animated Series. But in the 1980s, this is my 40th year. This is actually my 40th year in the business. I started out at Hanna-Barbera writing Scooby-Doo. And that really came about because my partner at the time, Cynthia Friedlow, she had been working in the executive offices at Hanna-Barbera, and they wanted to downsize. And Margaret Lesh, the famous Margaret Lesh, who would later go on to head Fox and produce Spider-Man and X-Men. Margaret was in charge of Hanna-Barbera at the time, and Margaret did not like firing people. So the way that she would let people go is she would turn to them and say, "I've got very good news, I'm going to make you a writer." And so she came to Cynthia and she said that, and Cynthia was crestfallen. I was working, at that time I was in post-production. We were living together, and I was working on a movie called DC Cab at Universal with Mr. T and Gary Busey and all these people. And she came home that night and she said, I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Well, I've been let go." And I said, "Really? They let you go?" And she said, "Well, no, they made me a writer, but yeah. And I said, "Well, just go back and tell them tomorrow that you'll be a writer." And she said, "Well, I don't want to do that." And I said, "No, I'll do it. And then, we'll be a team." And she said, all right. So she went back and she said, "Okay, I'll take the writing gig." And then we ended up selling about 3 or 4 Scooby-Doos that year to ABC. We became 2 of ABC's favorite writers. And then they said, at Hanna-Barbera, they said, "Well, who's this John Semper guy?" And she said, "Well, I used to work in post-production at H&B. I used to be down in the editorial department." So all the producers knew me because I would sit with them and we would look at their films when they came in from overseas and we would fix them. So they said, "Oh yeah, we remember that guy. Well, okay, tell him that we want him and you on staff." They're saying this to Cynthia. And so I became a staff writer at Hanna-Barbera, and I'm proud to say I was the first black staff writer in animation history. Thanks. And then as Eric said, it was a time of these ridiculous toy orders where toy companies realized that the greatest way that they could sell their product would be to create a 65-episode TV show that would run in syndication. And there was a lot of dead airtime at that time, so there was a lot of airtime for these shows to run. So suddenly, you get handed 65 episodes of something, and with very little lead time, which was great because that meant they couldn't fiddle around too much. So I ended up going on a run in the 80s where I went from staff at Hanna-Barbera, where I worked on everything at Hanna-Barbera: Scooby-Doo, Jetsons, Biscuits, Shirt Tails, good grief, everything they did, Smurfs. I wrote on all of those shows, and then after that, Margaret left Hanna-Barbera and took a bunch of us over to Marvel Productions with her. And so there I did Fraggle Rock, Jim Henson, and my first show that I ran Fraggle Rock, but my first show that I ran was a show called The Moon Dreamers, which I still have a fondness for, which was based on a toy line. Everything Marvel Productions did at that time was really based on a Hasbro toy line. So that's where they ended up doing Transformers and all those kind of Muppet Babies and stuff, and I did Moon Dreamers, which was a toy line. And so the 80s for me was probably my busiest era, because then when we get into the 90s, it gets into Spider-Man, and that's a whole later story. So anyway, there you go.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. And to finish up my 80s, because we got the start in December '84. At Hanna-Barbera, I was freelance. As John was saying, most people then, it was like script to script. You'd sell a script, you'd have the rent, and if you didn't, you didn't. And that's why when that word on staff, oh my God, that actual salary that we could count on would be a great thing, because otherwise you're just like a shoe salesman constantly pitching stories and hoping that it's something that the buyer likes. But yeah, when I got started at Hanna-Barbera, there were a few things. I mean, it was let's see, I'm gonna look back here because I have to look at my list. There was an embarrassing CBS show called Popeye and Son, which I don't know if you remember, but the first note we got from CBS when we're trying to do the show is, Popeye and Bluto can't fight. And really? Well, okay. And you've got these neat little drawings of the little kid that looks like Popeye, but Popeye's ugly, so make his son look like Archie. That was the level of care that some shows got, and luckily it wasn't all the shows. There was a toy-based, like you said, a Kenner toy-based show called Sky Commanders, that Kelly Ward and I were, the first thing that I ever had a chance to run wasn't a network show, it was a syndicated show in the afternoon. And the terrible thing about the toy that went with this show, which we only got one season of, it's a bunch of action heroes fighting in a future apocalyptic world, and they had to slide everywhere on cables to get from point A to point B. And the reason for that is that the toy gave you like 12 inches of string, and the kids would tie it to their parents' living room furniture and slide the Sky Commanders along and knock the other Sky Commander off. And that was, we're just looking at the Kenner people and thinking, how am I supposed to tell a realistic story that like a 12-year-old would get behind, where the people have to fight on strings? But you know, you do what you do, and
you do what you do.
It was a gig. For a year, I went sideways. There's a wonderful Japanese animation house called TMS, who did a lot of the Disney actual animation for the Disney Afternoon block. And they had a little studio near us. After I worked for Barbera for a while, got an offer to go there and be a development guy, come up with new shows to pitch, because they didn't know the American market, and they had a staff of about 3 people there. And so it was a great time. For 10 months, I got to just think up shows for my boss, who was Sidney Iwander, happened to be, who ended up being the guy that hired me at Fox to do Beetlejuice and X-Men. So that first gig, where always do your best work, no matter how strange the situation, working with him on that first thing for TMS got me some of my coolest jobs later. And we sold one show that year for all the work we did. It was called Galaxy High, and John Crispolucci designed it. So it was really beautiful. Sidney and I sold it. Somebody else took over and was running it, and I was out the door before I'd even hit the deal. But I had got that satisfaction of hearing, oh, CBS has bought your show, guys, and for a first-year guy, oh my God, this is wonderful. We didn't get any credit. They put Chris Columbus's name on as having created it, because that would sell better to CBS. And they're probably right. It could have made the sale. But so if you look up Galaxy High, Sidney's name and my name weren't anywhere near it. Chris Columbus came up with that series.
My name is Chris Weber, just to jump in here.
Sure.
And I also was working with my wife, Karen Wilson, as a writer during the 80s, and many of the same shows that these gentlemen have been speaking about are shows that we ended up pitching and selling to. During the 80s and early 90s, I think we ended up with a total of about 50 half hours that we managed to sell. And the way we got in, originally I had got my master's degree in communication arts television from Loyola Marymount, Los Angeles. And with that in hand, I got a job at Filmation, working as a pre-production assistant. So I was in there making sure the writers knew what the artists were doing, and the artists knew what the writers were doing, and Robbie London and the people in charge were getting things going there. Anyway, the second season of He-Man, they had produced over 120 episodes already, and they were running out of ideas. So my wife and I had, Karen Wilson, who was my wife and co-writer, had taken a class over at Hanna-Barbera in writing specifically for animation. So we said, well, heck, we could do this. So we pitched and we sold our first story. Well, we didn't sell our first story. We pitched an idea. They liked it enough that we got to write one act of He-Man, and they said, okay, that's good. Now pitch us some real stories. We did, and we managed to sell one He-Man. We sold the episode The Toy Maker, which was our first episode. Then we went on and we wrote a couple episodes of She-Ra, and we ended up working for, I think I counted last night, 20 different companies over the time period. We did some staff development. We did 6 months at TMS. We did a couple episodes of Galaxy High, and later we did 6 months of development over at Ruby Spears, and my wife and I ended up creating Dink the Dinosaur, which ran for 2 years on CBS and has been on various Cartoon Networks ever since then. I think that's enough about me for the moment. Keep going, guys.
Well, I was going to say that what I remember doing at TMS was Bionic 6.
Yeah.
Did an episode of Bionic 6. It was such a, you have to remember that in the beginning, there were really only about 3 companies that mattered. And Hanna-Barbera was one of them, Filmation was the other one, and maybe Ruby Spears when they...
Which was kind of owned by HB.
Which was also, eventually really a part of HB, or owned by the same people that owned HB. So we all kind of started in that little small situation. And then, and I remember it being when Margaret left Hanna-Barbera, because sort of the rule was for most of these networks that they would go to Hanna-Barbera first. So CBS had to deal with Filmation, and everything that Filmation did ended up on CBS. But all the other networks would look to Hanna-Barbera for their programming. And Margaret was synonymous with Hanna-Barbera, so it was Margaret Hanna-Barbera, Margaret Hanna-Barbera, and then Margaret left Hanna-Barbera and went to Marvel Productions. And then it was like Nomad in Star Trek, it was like, but we buy our programming from Hanna-Barbera and Margaret, but Margaret is no longer in Hanna-Barbera, but, and smoke coming out of the ears. And then suddenly it introduced this idea that, well, wait a minute, now we could go to all these other companies for programming. We don't just have to get it from these suppliers that we've been, and that's when it exploded. And so for the rest of us, suddenly we were being courted by other companies and we were free to do other things, and that's where you get everything starting. I consider it like the Big Bang, it explodes. And we all know each other and we all know the same people because we all started out in this little group.
Yeah, it was a small area, basically everybody down the street from each other.
Yeah.
And then Disney joined in like '87 with the Disney Afternoon, and they looked around for deep pockets. And there are all these littler companies, and HB was a reasonable size, but most of these companies like Filmation, wonderful guy, but he never had an extra dollar to his name as he put
Lou Scheinman.
And people that have worked for him, which is everyone I know except me, just revere the man as far as somebody to work for. He's a good-hearted fellow. But then, as Hanna-Barbera got huge, they had trailers in the parking lot because there weren't enough offices for everybody. It just was this huge factory, and then boom, Disney shows up. There's another 800-pound gorilla there, and they hired about 100 of us from Hanna-Barbera, from other places, from smallish shops. And then it kind of contracted. I mean, there ended up being, 3 or 4 major places, and then Warner's came along and kind of absorbed HB. And it's fascinating how, but at the time when we all started, it was a bit of a wild west. All these different people, I could go work for him, I could go work for him. And the nice part was the more different companies you worked for, the more contacts you have. So like if suddenly Margaret, if he's worked for Margaret and Stan Lee at Marvel, and in 1990, Margaret becomes the head of Fox Kids Network, suddenly, you've got the top person that could buy your show or ask for you to be part of a show, and her word is law. So we kind of all grew up together as the market grew, and there was just some really fun. Beetlejuice was a really fun one. It's very 80s. It's like 88 through 90. So I got in at the tail end. It kind of feel like an 80s show to me, and it was just Margaret's amazing. She was amazing at Hanna-Barbera. She was amazing for like 7 years at Marvel. Even though they couldn't sell a Marvel show because nobody in Hollywood believed that Marvel superheroes would be at all popular or profitable. That's how lame these people are. She and Stan tried from 1982 to 1987 to get X-Men on the air, and none of the networks would even consider it. Oh, that's a few hundred, pimply guys in their basements reading comic books. There's no audience for that. She even took money from another show spent $300,000 to produce Pride of the X-Men in '87, which was she said, look, if you won't look at the script, look at this wonderful animated show that I put together. And I looked at it and I said, So finally, after 20 years in the wilderness, producing half the great shows that ever were in kids television, she gets hired at Fox. And the first thing she says is, we're doing X-Men, Batman, and Spider-Man. My boss doesn't get it. He thinks I'm crazy. He tells me if any of these fail, I'm going to get fired. But this is why I've spent 20 years in the business. And we all owe it all to this one lady.
Yeah, I owe my entire career to Margaret Lesh because Margaret was my boss at Hanna-Barbera. She was my boss at Marvel Productions, where, by the way, I ended up hanging out a lot with a guy named Stan Lee. Because Stan had an office, on the same floor as me, and we became pretty good friends. And then that sows the seeds for when it comes time to do X-Men. She knows all about Eric and what he's capable of doing. She knows me and what I'm capable of doing. I know Stan. We both know Stan. So we all kind of rose up together, and that's the importance of the '80s, is that it provided the foundation for a lot of the really good stuff that we were able to do in the '90s. So we kind of slogged our way through a lot of garbage. I got a funny story, though, about Popeye. You mentioned Popeye and Son. My friend Dave Stone, who became an Academy Award-winning special effects editor, he won an Academy Award for Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula. But he started out in the sound editing department at Hanna-Barbera. And he wrote a funny song. He wrote a funny memo that was a parody that he circulated through the building. And it was supposedly a network memo, and it said, we're very excited to be doing Popeye. However, please note that we can no longer call him Popeye because that makes fun of disabled people. So we are going to have to refer to him now as visually impaired. And we no longer can have him eating spinach because the sponsor's not crazy about that. They'd really like to be promoting their product. So the new Popeye theme song is, I'm visually impaired, the sailor person. I'm visually impaired, the sailor person. I'm strong to the finish because I eat my breakfast cereal. I'm visually impaired, the sailor person.
So when you're breaking into television and you're getting this joyful, lifelong dream of a job of supporting yourself and your family as a screenwriter, and you get gigs like that, you have to kind of muster your way through it and be a professional because you don't know when right around the corner, X-Men or Beetlejuice or Batman or Spider-Man is going to be waiting for you. Yeah. And so if you've been a good soldier up to that point, and you've been a decent person to the people you work with, we've got some prima donnas in our business, and every business does. Yeah. And it's amazing how people don't learn that if someone's going to hire you, there's better chance if they like you in the first place, if you've done a good job for them and you're a likable person.
Yeah, I mean, you never knew where the next gig was going to come from. What drives me a little bit crazy today is when you talk to some of the younger people that are working, and they are under the impression that they have choice. And I did a panel where somebody was talking about how, well, I don't write kid stuff, and I don't want to write comedy, and I only want to write action adventure. And I'm thinking, I'll write whatever they want, because that's kind of how my career has been. I've worked on comedy. In the beginning they thought I was a comedy writer. Then I became action adventure, and then everybody said, oh, he's an action adventure writer. But the whole thing is
I'd like to introduce my wife, partner, co-writer, and Karen Wilson. Karen, have a seat.
I'm so sorry I'm late. I had to get one of these. And, oh my goodness. This is you. I've never been tagged before.
None of us have.
We're all in a good group.
Yeah, do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh my goodness.
Do you want to catch your breath?
Let me catch my breath. You guys talk for a second.
Network executives were not always as wonderful as Margaret. Karen and I did not have the good fortune of working with her very much, if at all. But we did work with the CBS executive named Judy Price. And Judy Price hired us to develop a series about a young King Arthur. So this is Arthur after the Sword and the Stone, but before the rest of Camelot. So, all right, we're working on that, and she liked what we were doing, and we went all the way. We did the development. We did the series Bible, which tells you all about the situations and characters. And then she said, okay, this is looking good. Go to script. So they're paying us all along to do these things. So we're going to script. We write a script. She likes the script. She approves the script. Great. It's all looking good. Now we're waiting to see if we get a slot. We have a meeting with Judy. She looks at it and she goes, well, you know, nobody knows who King Arthur is. The only slightly good thing was the show that got on instead of us was Ruby Spears' Superman, so at least people knew who Superman was. And we did get to write 2 episodes of that, so that was something.
Hello there. Oh my goodness, I'm so glad to see all of you. I'm so amazed and honored and privileged to see so many fans of 1980s animation, because I have to tell you, it was a blast writing it. I was a 29-year-old kid when I got started, and that was a little while ago, I think. So we're on Internet Movie Database, Karen Wilson with 2 L's if you want to look us up, but I think we've written almost 60 produced half hours of animation. And I think one of the strengths for myself and Chris is that we got to write for a lot of shows. And a lot of the shows at the very same time. We would be going across the room. We would be at Disney in the morning for a meeting with Gummy Bears, and we'd be in the afternoon talking to Jace and the Wheeled Warriors.
Down the block at Deke.
And then the next day we'd be talking to Transformers. Or, or G.I. Joe, and selling stories to them. So it was a very strange thing to bend your mind around different universes every single day.
Yeah. There was one week we were coming up with story ideas for the Smurfs and Rambo during the same week. Rambo was great because they said, oh, we're going to do all... Mike Chang was the story editor for Rambo. Yes. And he said, we're going to do action, action, action. And we've got ex-mercenaries and ex-marines writing the show. And yeah, okay, fine. So we came up with an idea about Rambo trying to recover the USS Ironsides, which the bad guys have hijacked, and they're going to use it to steal a nuclear submarine. After we finish the script, they're getting ready to go into production. They come back to us and they say, okay, what's the moral of the story?
And the moral of the story is, it's not nice to steal nuclear submarines.
They didn't go for that, so we came up with something about learning from history and tied that into the ironclad Ironsides.
You know, one of the cool things about the 80s, though, was you never knew when you were going to find yourself in a room with a genuine celebrity. Because that was the beginning of a time when a lot of the celebrities were starting to spin themselves off as cartoon characters. So Martin Short was doing The Misadventures of Ed Grimley, and I ended up doing Kid and Play's cartoon show for NBC. I was under contract to NBC, and they came to me one day and they said, well, we want to do a show with Kid and Play. And I said, oh, really? What are kids at play? What is that? And they said, well, no, you got to see this movie, House Party. And this was before you could get movies on video cassette even. So I ran to Universal, to the theater complex, and caught the last night of House Party playing at the theater. And I saw the movie, and I thought, okay, well, this is cool. And literally within about a week, I was in a room with Kid and Play, and we were figuring out their show. And I did one season of their show on NBC. I was a showrunner, along with Cynthia. And then the producers of the show came to me and they said, well, the boys are happy with the way the show is working out. Would you like to write a movie for them? And I said, yeah, I think I'd like to do that. And so I wrote a film, long story short, I wrote a film called Class Act, which has turned out to be one of their seminal films. So, you know, you just never knew what being in cartoons was going to lead to. You have to understand that we were really in the ghetto. We were in the entertainment industry ghetto at that time. Now every star wants a cartoon show, and every network wants a star-based cartoon show, and it's all very cool and wonderful. But in the 1980s, it was the ghetto. Margaret tells a funny story about how she was at a party, you know, with a lot of famous executives and famous, powerful people, and one person came up to her and said, "Oh, and what do you do?" And she said, "Well, I work in cartoons," and then he just immediately walked away. Because there was no advantage to talking to someone who worked in cartoons. So we were very happily working in the ghetto, and every once in a while, what people who were more aspirational, let's say, more aggressive about their careers, what they didn't understand was that working in cartoons was a great way to really meet cool people at that particular time. So that's
Well, I have to admit that I wrote animation because I love animation.
Yeah.
Thank you. You know, I grew up on Speed Racer and Kimba the White Lion, and, you know, I saw those shows. And what I really loved about animation, though, is that the writer gets to be the director.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that, is that everything that the characters do, they storyboard and animate. As an example, Chris, I don't remember what show it was on, but we wrote a little side note in the directions that said, one of the characters was riding shotgun.
That was for Mask.
So all of a sudden, what shows up, coming back from the animation studio, and everyone's freaking out, people with shotgun.
Well, let me explain to you why that happened that way. Bill Hanna, whose sole purpose in life was to make a cartoon for the least amount of money possible. Bill Hanna figured out, initially in animation you had what were called story men. And story men were guys who would figure out the story and they would draw it in little panels, what we today would call storyboarding. And they would pin those panels up on the wall, and that was the script. There was no script. That was the movie. So when you see these guys doing Pinocchio and stuff, and they're pointing to boards full of drawings, they are writing the story for Pinocchio. But that cost money to have guys draw these individual pictures and images. So Bill Hanna figured out that if you could train writers to think visually, they would write down exactly what was supposed to happen on screen. And this is the greatest training that we ever could have gotten. Because we couldn't write, you know, today writers write, and then they fight. And some storyboard guy has to figure out the battle. I still feel like a criminal when I write a script today, and I know better, but I write something like that. But you can do that now. Working for Bill Hanna, you had to literally write, you know, each and every scene, each and every cut, each and every frame, describe what was going to happen, and that was cheaper for him. It was great training for us, and that's the way we learned. So that's why storyboard artists were told, you do exactly what's in the script. You do not do any extra thinking, which created great animosity between artists and writers. That's the genesis of the animosity between artists and animation writers.
You know, may I mention Harry Love for just a moment?
Oh, sure.
Many people don't know who Harry Love was.
Great name.
But an amazing man. Hanna-Barbera was so desperate for animation writers that they gave a class, and that's actually how Chris and I got in.
Yeah,
Harry Love.
I actually took the class too.
Did you?
Yeah, I did.
Wow, it was an amazing class.
Yeah, with Harry. Yeah.
With Harry Love, and you know, because you learn about not only about thinking visually, but also thinking the way an actor thinks, and really thinking about making the voices distinct and different, and also having fun with it. Yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, you can't write animation unless you can do the voices, because you had to do the voices in your head in order to get it right. So, you know, Smurfette was, "Oh, Papa Smurf," you know, and if you can't hear that in your head, when you're writing, then it really becomes impossible to write cartoons. It's a very important thing.
Harder for us on
To follow up what John was saying about the detail, both of them were saying about the detail of in effect, seeing the whole movie in your head. It's the opposite advice that you get if you're trying to say write a sitcom or even a live action feature. But my wife and I had the opportunity to be the showrunners on a live action show for Fox Kids called Young Hercules with Ryan Gosling, 17-year-old Ryan Gosling, who my wife got to hug twice. She will tell everyone in the room. So just it's just a perfect example of the difference between thinking like an animation writer and thinking like a live action writer. Our X-Men scripts were 40 pages. They're too long, they're too dense, we put too much in them, but they needed to be at least 34 to 35 to really tell the detail of the story so that we could hand that to the artists and they knew what it was that we needed to see and what they needed to draw. In Young Hercules, the scripts for the same length show were 20 pages. There's 20 to 40. And all the rest of that detail in animation writing is us thinking like a filmmaker and saying, oh, well, if this has to happen, Wolverine needs to be in this corner, or Beetlejuice needs to be coming up over the hill. And you tell them that. You don't just say something happens in the valley. You spell out, he does this, she does this, he does this. And when you get to the end of the script, you're taking a lot of space. It's not just dialogue. And that was, again, both of them are saying, it's incredibly great training for thinking like a screenwriter because you're imagining every bit of it as opposed to just what people are saying and maybe what the mood is. You can always pare it back. You can always trim stuff back. But that's a great fun, I think, for most of us in animation writing. We're not just, okay, the friends walk into the coffee shop and we sit and talk for 10 minutes. That's cool, that's fun, that's funny, that's character driven, but that doesn't feel like filmmaking. The filmmaking on Friends happens on the set, but for us, the filmmaking happens in our heads.
Yeah, it was fantastic training for writing visually. In fact, there was a period of time at Disney where they were not hiring cartoon writers, they were only hiring sitcom people. And I thought that was so bizarre because all sitcom people write are, they stand in a room and they talk, and then they move to another room and then they talk, and then they move back to that first room and then they talk. And I thought, what kind of a basis is that for writing cartoons? And you get a whole bunch of really bad Disney shows during that era where characters are just endlessly talking. But we had to choreograph all the action, we had to figure out what people were going to do and how they were going to do it and where they were going to do it. There's one other really cool thing about 80s animation that I have to point out. When I started out in the early 80s, all of the people doing the voices were the people that I had grown up listening to as a kid. So my first recording session that I ever attended was a Flintstones session, and it was Henry Corden doing Fred, Gene Vanderpyle doing Wilma, Mel Blanc doing Barney. It was really, that was the great thing, when they resurrected the Jetsons, they brought back all these people. Again, it was Mel Blanc doing Mr. Spacely, and they had, Penny Singleton doing Jane. So that was, for me, the most exciting part of working in the 80s in animation was all the voices that I had grown up hearing as a kid were now still, Don Messick was still Scooby-Doo and Shaggy. And Dawes Butler was still doing Elroy and the Jetsons. These are the famous voices. June Foray was doing Jokey Smurf. June Foray was Rocky the Flying Squirrel. So to get to work with all these people was really, for me, the high point. And I think that's the thing I miss the most now, is that all these folks are gone. And it isn't quite the same thrill, when and if you get into the recording studio.
But working for Disney, I think that you could go into the diplomatic corps afterwards. Because we did a little script for Little Mermaid, and 40, mind you, it's a 22-minute show, and there were, we got 40 pages of notes from people about and they were all contradictory about what they actually wanted in this script. And the poor story editor, and all of a sudden we had to sit down and, basically you would completely rewrite a show, either not at all or 10 times. And so sometimes you'll wonder, though, why things are disjointed. When we were doing Galaxy High, I remember Larry DiTilio and Chris and I, we were up in the room watching the voice actors, and the CBS executive was there. And he stopped and he listened and he said, well, I think that a giant wish mist should descend upon Galaxy High, and that should be the cause of what's going on in your episode. And it was Those Lips, Those Eyes, which was about Mick Jagger and his friends. And we all had to stop for a moment in utter shock because we're recording it now. It's been written, it's been approved, and there's no place for a giant wish mist. But that happened very often.
Yeah, it seemed like the basic qualification for being a network executive is never having read a comic book, never having watched a cartoon, never having enjoyed a children's anything.
Never having met a child. Yes. They're not sure what they were, but they were telling stories to them, yes.
And they would say, you're hired, Ridiculous.
And they have that attitude towards writers. I remember when Chris and I created Dink the Little Dinosaur for Ruby Spears. I mean, the show happened because Judy Price looked out her window and saw a giant poster for Land Before Time. Okay? And so they said, do Land Before Time, but not Land Before Time. So I was like, all right. So Joe Ruby took us out for lunch, and, he dropped his spoon, and he had the waiter bring him another spoon. And then he held it up and he said, writers are like spoons. I can get a new one whenever I wish. So, that's the kind of pressure.
This was our boss.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, this is Joe Ruby in charge of Ruby Spears Studio. And then he assured us that he loved our work and he liked us.
But he couldn't help say that.
But he couldn't help but say that. And then I found out that he does that to every writer that he took out for lunch.
Oh. Drop the spoon on purpose. Okay.
Yes. Same story. We started training. So anyhow, that's how we were trained by our betters.
There are bosses all over the map in our business, and it really affects your life. Whether you've got a good supportive one like Margaret, who will just say, when we ask, can we do something as ambitious as this, is to sure push it farther, versus really the people who either don't care or are so anxious are going to get a nasty letter from a mother, somewhere in Omaha. It's incredible pressure on Hollywood for kids programming. That was a thing that we had to learn to live within the limits. I mean, we're doing X-Men, and people are blowing up planets and battling supervillains, and you have to find a way to do that that's not that people will get too freaked out about. The great gag was, I asked at Fox, well, are you getting nasty letters about how ferociously intense X-Men is? Because the books are like R-rated, the comic books are. So we did a gentler version, but it was still pretty intense. They said, no, the 80s show, Beetlejuice, got more angry letters from parents than any show we've ever done, and it's because he's a demon that lives in another world, and he's the star of the show. And so, what do you think they're going to get?
Yeah. Well, I remember.
So you never know when you're writing. You never know what's
when Filmation was doing The Lone Ranger in the early '80s, when a lot of this was first coming down. They got notes from the network saying the Lone Ranger cannot shoot his silver bullets.
Yeah.
He can't shoot at anyone. So the closest they were able to do, I think they had him he could shoot a rope and then a box would drop on the bad guy. That he could do.
Yeah, the censorship was pretty intense for everyone. I remember getting a note on Spider-Man, caution that Spider-Man, when he lands on the roof, he doesn't hurt any pigeons. But you learn to live with it. You learn to work around it, and it was part of the creative challenge of making these things, happen. Was just sort of working around the limitations. And I think that's also good practice for writers. is to understand how to work with the parameters that you're given. We can write anything.
Yes.
Those of us up here, whatever challenge you give us, we can write it, and that's because we had that kind of training.
I don't know if you've had an opportunity, but along with our animation writing career, Chris and I got to write some comic books. Also for Disney, we did DuckTales or Chippendales, Rescue Rangers.
Oh, for the Disney Digest?
Right. But the most fun we had was the Masters of the Universe newspaper comic strips. And there's, 3.5 years that are collected. It's the equivalent of 5 feature films worth of Masters of the Universe story. And it's published by
Dark Horse Comics. The strip was originally syndicated to about 80 countries, but in the United States, He-Man had already finished its second year of new stories. So a lot of the newspapers were He-Man, you know. So there were only about 8 papers in the United States that carried the He-Man and Masters of the Universe comic strip.
But if you're hungry for 1980s style Masters of the Universe stories, go on Amazon Books and and enjoy it. It's a pretty fun. It's about 500 pages worth of and beautiful, beautiful artwork by
Gerald Fortin, who was a designer for the pre-production staff over at Filmation when I was first working there.
All right, well, I think we're getting pretty close now. I'm getting the, please wrap up.
Please wrap up.
If these 3 folks will allow me a plug, we have an X-Men panel at 1 o'clock in the library. So if you're interested in, they'll be the X-Men. The actress Rogue will be there, and a couple of the artists, and myself and my wife, who both were central to the show. So just my plug, as I said, thank you for coming by, about the 80s, where we all learned everything that we know.
And if I can throw in a plug, they just premiered my latest project last night here, which was Green Lantern, Beware My Power. And it will be coming out on Blu-ray DVD in a couple of days, actually the 26th, so in about a week it'll be coming out. And I hope you all get a chance to pick it up and enjoy it.
I have one more plug, but it's not for me. A very dear friend of mine, DC Fontana.
Mm-hmm.
Remember a Star Trek fame?
Yeah.
Well, it turned for many years, if you knew Dorothy, you knew that she absolutely adored the King Arthur legend. Well, the last thing that she worked on before she passed away a couple of years ago was a novel called Futurus Rex, and it is now available as an ebook on Amazon. It just came out 2 days ago. So the last writing of our dear Dorothy Fontana. So
Futurus Rex.
Futurus Rex.
Very sweet. I used to see her at Majel Roddenberry's parties.
Oh, God.
All the time, her infamous parties.
Yeah, but what a storyteller she is, and this wonderful blend of science fiction and fantasy. Futurus space Rex, and there's do check it out on Amazon ebooks. It is on Barnes & Noble or whatever you use for ebook, or you can get a hold of a copy of it. Coming in paperback soon. But I just love her so much, I just had to mention. I'm so excited that to get to read something by Dorothy again. I'm like,
This podcast is not endorsed by Warner Brothers or Amblin Entertainment and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Animaniacs, Tiny Toon Adventures, Freakazoid, the Warner Brothers logo, all names, pictures, and sounds are registered trademarks and or copyrights of their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of the Animanicast unless otherwise indicated.